Hello, tribe. Welcome back. Hello, everyone. We're here for the last session of the THU Career Camp by Lenovo. Thank you so much. Our last talk is with Katie and Nicole. Hi, how are you?
Good. Nuno's exhausted, by the way.
Yeah.
Nuno needs some sherry and a nap.
I do need. Thank you so much for being here. So the stage is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nuno. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. As Nuno said, it is the last official day of the career camp. We hope you've all taken advantage of all the opportunities that have been available to you. I know I have. I've really enjoyed talking to people and watching the other presentations. It's been a lot of fun. I hope you've met new people and learned new things, and that's really what this is all about, and it's really special. We'd like to give a shout out to the THU team for inviting us this year, including us. It's a really special event. This is the first year that we've done it, and it's been really, really great. Hopefully we'll be able to do it in person next year, right? Nicole, do you have anything to say?
Yes. Hi. Sorry, everyone. Nice to meet everyone. I clicked out of the broadcast by accident for just a moment. Too many windows open. So happy Friday. Want to also thank THU. We're super excited to be involved in this process this year. As we accelerate to the end of 2020, we hope that this unique and very on-brand experience on the final day of your THU Career Camp provides you with insights that you all find valuable. We hope that you enjoy your time with us today. We know we certainly will. We look forward to talking with all of you and certainly seeing you safely all in person next year in 2021 in a wonderful location on the globe.
Fingers crossed. All fingers crossed. So let's do some introductions. My name's Katie Nelson. A little bit about me. I've been in recruiting for about 13-ish years now. Before that, I worked in the entertainment industry, and I worked in educational software and in production, and I did a lot of administration work. I've always been passionate about games, video games. I've always been a gamer. I love art, and I really love helping people. So being a recruiter is a great career choice for me because it kind of connects all those things. My passion, my love for the things that I do outside of work, I get to bring inside work, and then my strong organizational skills and my people skills, really. And I get to do it in an industry that I love with creative people, which really inspires me. Right now, I'm currently working with Cloud Chamber. It's a 2K development studio. We've got a studio here in the San Francisco Bay Area where I am. And we've also just opened up a studio in Montreal in Canada, which is super exciting and has opened up a whole new group of people for me to meet and talk to, which has been really fun and really exciting. We're working on BioShock, which is really cool and very, very exciting for a lot of people. So we're on the charge for that, and we're hiring. We have a lot of jobs open, and check us out. We'll have links at the end of the presentation where you can find us. And I'd like to introduce my colleague, Nicole.
Thank you so much, Katie. Really appreciate it. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole. Like Katie, I've been in the recruiting business in some way or another, or one way or another, for a very long time. I like to say since dinosaurs roamed the earth. Well over 20 years of experience now, and absolutely love it. When I was about 3 years old, my father, who was an executive at the time, would come home and talk about headhunters. And at first, I was a little afraid of what that was because I thought of a little guy with a spear or something. And so I was a little bit concerned about what that was. And then when he explained to me what it was, I knew, I don't know, by the age of 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that range, that's what I wanted to do with my career. And that's basically what I've done most of my career. I've worked in multiple categories: high tech, consumer packaged goods, the food business, meaning like food manufacturing, healthcare, communications, advertising, and of course, my absolute all-time favorite, gaming. Been recruiting on and off in the gaming industry for multiple very large publishers, including 2K, for about 13 years now, somewhere around about 12, 13 years. Gaming has been and will continue to be my absolute favorite for many reasons, but primarily because the people in it are creative and smart and quirky and fun and bright and innovative. And also because I, like Katie, I love recruiting artists. I love looking at portfolios, mostly because I would probably mess up a stick figure. So I don't understand how artists do what they do, but I appreciate every bit of it and absolutely love it. So love the gaming industry. I currently work in our San Francisco headquarters, or San Francisco Bay Area headquarters, as the Director of Talent Acquisition Operations, as well as building out our executive recruiting function. So look forward to sharing more with you today and learning more about you.
Well said. All right. So today we're talking about building a personal brand. This is something that has been around for a long time, and I have just started to kind of pick up the pieces, and I think it's very interesting when doing a job search that these are kind of all the things about having a personal brand are all the things that you need to build in order to do, to have a successful job search. It's about your resume, it's about your materials. It can be impactful. It can be negative if you're not pulling these things together correctly. So this is something that's kind of near and dear to my heart right now. We all know that first impressions are really important. During our introductions, Nicole and I made an impression on you. Hopefully it was positive. Sometimes it's not, but we had the good fortune, the opportunity to kind of do this in person. When you're doing a job search, you don't have that opportunity all the time. So your resume, your portfolio, your website, your LinkedIn, those are the pieces of information that are making your first impression for you. And it's really important that those things are saying the things that you want them to say, that they're reflecting your true self and how you want to be perceived in the world. And it's good for you to know what impression that's leaving on other people. And you want to make sure that it's like, again, reflecting the image that you want. So all of that it's a personal brand, and this is where it can work for you by cultivating all of that and using it to help you.
Yeah, I think in simple terms, your personal brand is how you want the world to see you. In the world of 24-hour news cycles, instantaneous social media posts, Twitter, Instagram, all of these different mediums now, it's very important. It's actually much more complicated than it ever used to be. So it's something you really want to invest time in and really think a lot about. It's an assemblage of your experience, your competencies, your actions, your values, and achievements that make up your digital presence that the world sees. Why is it important? In a job search, it's helpful to have consistent representation across all your platforms, so it's cohesive, makes a strong impression. It lets recruiters and hiring managers know who you are and help them remember you quickly and over the long term as well. As Katie said, first impressions are crucial, so you want to make sure that your resume, your portfolio, your LinkedIn profile are tightly in line and on brand always. That they really represent you. It's beneficial for making a good, long-lasting first impression and then carrying that through your professional career.
Absolutely. Okay, so follow-up question to that always is, so what is it? How do we do it? How do I create a personal brand?
So was that a question in the chat? Or no, that's your question to me.
That's my question.
You can see how this is very odd when we're on
this.
So we appreciate your patience. So let's think about all the things that go into your representation when you apply for a job. Let's connect your personal brand to specifically what you're here to learn this week. You have a job that you're looking at. You have something that you want. You have an organization you want to enter, and have them take a really strong look at you and a positive look at you. Let's go through all those different things. Your application. Most companies, if not all, have some sort of online application process. Your resume, your portfolio, if you're an artist or a writer or creative of any kind. That could also mean code samples, that kind of thing as well. Your social media accounts, mainly LinkedIn for professional purposes, but not entirely. We can go over that here in a moment. Your references and recommendations and how you use those. As well as your professional communications, both in writing, obviously at the application stage, but through the course of your interaction with a potential company. It's very important to invest the time you need to think about all of these components that I just talked about. When you think of all these separate components, do they form a cohesive, unified, and holistic picture of who you are, creating a real brand? Does that brand look and feel authentic to you as a professional and accurately and fully represent not only your skill set, but valued characteristics to the organizations you seek to join? I think a lot of people many overlook the importance of really rooting all of this in your values and what you bring to the table. That's becoming more and more important to more and more companies across the globe. Do these components that make up this brand represent your values and priorities for your career? It's very important for the company to understand what your priorities are. That's just as important as what theirs are. These are really difficult questions for most people. It can feel uncomfortable to be this insightful and self-reflective. It will likely present you with the most amount of time that you need to invest in this process of building your brand. Give it the time and space this process needs. It's really important, and I think it'll pay off. I know it will pay off for you in the long run. Job applications can vary from employer to employer, but generally they ask for your experience, give you a place to leave a message or a cover letter, and of course the ability to upload your resume. Your resume should mirror what's on your LinkedIn profile, but have a lot more detail in it, and show a little bit more of your personality when you can. We'll cover more on that later. Your social media accounts should represent who you are as a potential employee. Obviously, LinkedIn does this, but if you have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, I know Facebook's for old people, but Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, if you stream on Twitch, do all these work together to present the same image of you across the board? And is that image employable? That's really important to think about. I often say to my son, it's sort of unfortunate that you live in a world where everything that you do and you put out there online is permanent. If you make a mistake, it's permanent. So be thoughtful and careful about what you're putting out there. Is it the best you are you putting forward to the world? Talking a little bit about your portfolio as an artist, if you're an artist or a designer, even a writer, I would say you should have a portfolio, but you really need to have a portfolio. In fact, most organizations won't even review your work. They won't review your resume. Unless you have, or even your social media profile, unless you have a portfolio. To give you kind of the inside skinny on how we do this, when we look at someone's brand as an artist, oftentimes we look at the resume last. To be honest, we look at the portfolio first. ArtStation is a great choice. This isn't a plug. I know no one's paid me. There are other spaces for you, for you to highlight your portfolio, depending on what you do. And it's important to investigate all avenues that are right for you. It's really important that your portfolio showcase the work that represents who you are and how you want others to see your work. Continually updating your portfolio with not only your professional, but also personal work. Don't be afraid to showcase alternative mediums. As an example, if you're an animator, but also love sculpting and believe it helps to tell your creative story and is aligned with your brand, show it off. We love that. Showcase only the work that you are most proud of. I can't tell you how important that is in your portfolio. Offering when you can a variety of work that shows diversity in your approach, concepts, that kind of thing. If your work is diversified, it's important that you highlight that diversity in depth, but don't load too much work on your portfolio. Make it punch at the reviewer. And most importantly, represent that feeling that you want that reviewer to get when they look at what you're representing. And the feeling that you think most holistically represents you as a creative force. Keep it clean, keep it organized, and most importantly, even more importantly, credited properly and honestly. That's also very, very important in a portfolio.
It's interesting because I did a couple of portfolio reviews yesterday, and all of those things came up, and those were all questions that I got. And somebody asked me, they're like, well, how many pieces should I have on my portfolio? And I gave a very long-winded answer because there is no exact number. And at the end of it, I said, or you know what, 7. Let's just go with 7 because that's easier. But there's no right answer. It really is. There's an ebb and flow to your portfolio, and that's just something that you're going to have to dial in and get recommendations on. Really, have other people look at, have other people review it. That helps. So yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit more specifically about job applications. There have been some other career development talks, and I know that some of the other recruiters and other people have talked about, you know, what you need to do and how you need to do it. And, you know, kudos to the other recruiters who've talked about how important it is to make it easy for the recruiter to review your application. Because as Nicole said, we look at a lot of applications, and it might be a little self-serving in the end, but, you know, the tighter you have that buttoned up and the cleaner the process, the better it is for us, and probably the more likely it is that you'll get through to the next step in the process. So here's a few tips for doing a job application. Make sure your resume is up to date. You know, make sure that your links are all accurate. Make sure that it has, you know, a way for us to contact you, because that's really important. You can apply for a job, and if you forget to put your email address on there, it's an old email address, we're not going to be able to get in touch with you. So that's really important. Make sure you spell your name correctly. Make sure that, you know, there aren't any typos on the resume. Just give it a once over and make sure that it's all buttoned up. Have someone else review it. That's really important too. It's good when we're talking about your personal brand that everything is cohesive, that everything is kind of matchy. Use the same email address. I have a lot of candidates that have like 3 or 4 different email addresses, and it starts to get very confusing in our system. You go to LinkedIn, they've got a different email address. There's a different email address on the ArtStation. There's a different email address on the resume. Having all of those things together and matching makes it look more professional and cleaner and allows us to get in touch with you. And then also make sure that it's an email address that you're checking. I know people that have a professional email address that they use, and they're like, oh yeah, I don't check that one. I'm like, well, then maybe that's the one that should not be on your resume.
Right.
If you need to submit a portfolio for a role, if it says, you know, we're not going to look at this unless you submit a portfolio, obviously submit a portfolio. And make sure the link works. We get a lot of dead links in resumes, you know, and a resume isn't, you know, a document that you create and walk away from. A resume, especially when you're applying for jobs, it's a living document. You can change it from company to company. You can change it every time you submit it to somebody else. But so make sure that you're taking a look at it and that everything's working and all of your links are there. Recruiters review hundreds of applications over the course of a week, sometimes thousands, depending on what kind of role that they're recruiting for. And it's really in your best interest to make sure that your application is error-free in order to get the attention that it deserves, because you deserve the attention, right? You've worked hard to get where you are. You want to talk to somebody. You want to get to that next step in the job process. And the application is really just a hurdle to get you to the next step. So make sure that you're making it easy on yourself. You know, and how does this all relate to your personal brand? It's a part of your first impression. You know, done properly, it's an intentional way of showing the recruiter or the hiring team that you're capable and you're professional, that you know what you're doing. And again, that will open the door for you getting to the next step.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about the resume. So to get a little bit more specific, and Katie, thank you for that. So here's where the resume is really, as Katie mentioned, where your personal brand can make an immediate impact very quickly. And not to reiterate what I already said about the time you want to put into developing your brand and who you are holistically and how you want to present yourself, it's really important that you put the time into the resume. It's a great place to make those intentional choices that Katie mentioned on how you represent yourself in this space. To help you, there are tons of templates that you can use. Really good resources for good resume formats. I mean, back in the day, you know, we used to hire resume writers, right? I don't think that that's that's necessary. If you want someone to help you sort of craft how you want to communicate your resume, that's fine. And we definitely recommend that, but it's not necessary to do that. But there's really good formats for resumes. There's really no excuse in this day and age to have a bad looking resume. It's really important to realize, though, that there are no specific rules. We get that question a lot. What's the current format, right? For a while, it was like bullets, and then it was diamonds, and then arrows, and how do I do this? How do I do that? There is no one way that's the perfect way to write a resume for every company. To be quite honest, every recruiter, every hiring manager stylistically has a different preference of what they like to see. So I think that the best way to approach it is to keep it clean. keep it easy. Make the reviewer's life easier to be able to very quickly see who you are and see what you've done. The resume should be, we should cleanly summarize your employment history, your skills, your education, of course, and any special technical knowledge you have, or nonprofits, or very specific skill sets that maybe came from some place that's not really having to do with your work, but having to do with other types of activities outside of work. It's also a good place to message your intentions to potential employers and really flex that brand that you put so much time in developing. A lot of people ask us about mission statements, that kind of thing. Personal mission statements have gone kind of out of fashion in resumes, mostly because they're not that insightful generally. People have a really difficult time writing them. So sometimes they don't really represent them as well as they had intended. And recruiters don't really spend a lot of time reading them, to be quite honest, to be really blunt. The same argument could probably be made of cover letters. That's really a personal choice. But those generally consist of like a candidate telling us that they really want a job, and specifically the job they want at our company. The truth is that this information is largely, like I said, overlooked or skipped. It's kind of a snooze, to be honest. We're trying to get to the meat and potatoes of what you do. So as Katie mentioned, it's important to realize that recruiters take well under a minute to scan and review each resume, well under a minute. I would even argue under 15 seconds to really scan and review each resume as they're going and looking through resumes to see who they want to push forward in the process. So it's really important to keep it simple, clean, and also results driven. Use specific data or examples to show the result of your work to illuminate your value in that role that you brought to that particular organization in real time. Instead of a mission statement at the top of your resume, you can use the same messaging that you use on LinkedIn, or a bit of a bio, something from your Twitter page. You can make it kind of humorous if that's something you like to do. Make it something catchy but authentic. Keep it short, make it personal, stay on brand. That's what I would recommend for that section.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a question in the chat about how do you expand on the values? How does one add that to a portfolio? I think that space is a perfect space to add your messaging, your brand. You can add your values to the top of your resume. Mm-hmm. I work in ArtStation a lot. I spend half of my day. It's either on LinkedIn or on ArtStation. And there's an about section. And I think that about section sometimes gets overlooked by people building out their portfolios. But I think it's very important. You get to tell me who you are. You get to tell everybody who you are and what you believe in that little space there, the about space. And that's also a really good space, and don't overlook it for linking to other places. There's a LinkedIn button, there's Insta, Twitter, Facebook. You can link all of your other things there. But that's a really great space. We've looked at your artwork, and now we get to go and look at who you are right there. So I hope that answers that question for you. Let us move on to your portfolio. Nice transition. Wow, that happened really well. I'm so excited when that happens.
Our favorite subject.
And Nicole and I have said this, that we love looking at art. That's why we're art recruiters. We recruit for other things, and we have, and those are our skills. But hands down, this is my favorite part of being a recruiter, and why I like working in games. I love looking at portfolios. I could do it all day long. I am amazed and I am awed by the talent and creativity that's out there in the world. I dabble in art, but I am by no means what I consider myself to be an artist. I'm a hobbyist. So I'm floored. And I'm honored that I get to talk to people about their art, and I get to talk to people about their portfolios. I did a couple reviews yesterday. I'm doing some more this afternoon. And I just, I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love connecting with people and their art and all of that. So that being said, not everything I see is good. And that's a different conversation. I'm not here to critique anyone's art, but I can look at how a portfolio is laid out. A lot of portfolios are kind of scattered. You can tell that the person isn't really sure what they want to do, what they want to specialize in, or what they think that they should put up there. As an artist or designer, having a clear and intentional personal brand will help you shape your portfolio. And that goes a long way in your job search. if you're a character artist and you're applying for roles, but you've got a bunch of landscape stuff that you've done and you've got that up on your portfolio, recruiters can be like, well, I don't know what they're actually doing. I need a character artist. I need somebody who's passionate about doing that. And that's what we're looking for. Sometimes we can sift through it if you've got a lot of character work, if you've been doing it for years, and then you've got your personal work. We can filter through that. So don't think that you can't put those things up there. But it's good to have a clear thread in your portfolios and a clear theme. Getting the right balance is difficult, but it's something that you really need to work on. This is really important if you're an artist or a designer. In the end, it's really worth the effort. It's 100% worth the effort that you're going to put into having a good portfolio. As an accomplished artist, it's a great resource for emerging artists to look at your work, follow your journey. And of course, we get to appreciate all of that. We have an artist that works for us at Cloud Chamber. And I think in every single one of the portfolio reviews I did yesterday, I brought up his art station. And he's a very accomplished artist. He's been working in the industry a very long time. And I said, so, here's where he started and here's where he grew. And here's all the amazing things that he's worked on. And you can kind of start picking apart. And I highly recommend that. Look at other people's portfolios. Look at people, who work at companies that you want to work with or worked on games that you really appreciate. Go find them, find their portfolios and look at them and see what they're doing. It's not always going to be a good example, but it's a really good place to start. I think Nicole touched on this, the age-old adage that you're only as good as the worst piece on your portfolio. It's very true. I've had art directors reject portfolios because some of the work on there is obviously old and it's not up to par. And it's also part of, it shows your decision making that might not have been a good decision to leave that on your portfolio. So you do need to edit, constantly look at your portfolio. As you get better as an artist, take a look at the stuff that's still on there that's from a couple of years ago. There's no reason to keep a piece if it's nostalgic. Get rid of it, add your new stuff, keep it fresh, keep it updated, and make sure that you're putting the things out there that hiring teams are going to want to see.
We've got some questions here in the chat, Katie. Why don't we address them in order? I wanted to kind of circle back to the values and how do you add that to a portfolio? And it is admittedly a little bit more difficult to do within a portfolio. Within a resume, though, I think it's really important to think about what are your values and why would you seek out a certain company and not another type of company? When you really think about, I want to work for this company because they align with whatever those values are, come up with your core principled values as a person, and then put that at the top of your resume. I would be really clear about it. These are my values. This is why I'm looking at your organization. You can put it in the email. You can put it at the top of the resume. Include some sort of declarative statement about what your values are and what's important to you. There's no issue in doing that. And more companies are basing their decision-making, thank goodness, they're starting to turn the corner to making all of their corporate decisions based on a core set of values that are real, not something they just wrote down on a whiteboard and marketed it out to the company. More and more companies are actually living by that. And you know why they're doing that? Because people are forcing them to do that. Incoming employees are holding their feet to the fire. So think about what those things are to you. There's a question, best way to format a cold email. We can maybe address this later, but I think the best way to format a cold email is to warm it up. A cold email, I think what you mean, I think the question is coming from a place of, I don't know the recipient. How do I format that? You can do it in a way that really lets your brand shine through that email. I'm a huge fan of humor. Humor gets me. Humor, some sort of quick personal snippet about the person that they think highlights who they are as a potential employee. I'm going to respond to that email really quickly, most likely, if they catch me with humor. So don't be afraid to use humor. Warm up those cold emails, even though you don't know the recipient. And then should we put some portfolio pieces in LinkedIn too? I put them on Instagram, but in LinkedIn, it feels a bit weird. Absolutely.
Yeah, on LinkedIn, it's great. And I like it as a teaser. I like to see that, like, oh, there's a portfolio. If it's all you have, it's kind of strange to me, but that's, again, a recruiter personal preference. I prefer going out to ArtStation, again, not a plug. But if you've got a couple pieces in there, I think it's great. And I was talking to some people yesterday, and I said, post your stuff on LinkedIn. People do it all the time. Like, yeah, here's something new that I worked on. People will see that. People will like it. They will comment on it. They might share it. And that's how you build your network. That's how you get more eyes on your work, and that's how you can get jobs too. There was another question back a little ways about the descriptions of the artwork in the portfolio. If there's a spot for it, I think it's really helpful. I think it's helpful for the art teams, the art director, to see your thought process on things. Also, if you're working in a larger studio and you have a big piece that was worked on by a lot of different people, as Nicole earlier said, you know, hey, this is this great piece that I just did. They just did an art blast from all the work from Valhalla. And you can say, hey, I modeled this, but so-and-so lit it, and so-and-so did the textures, and so-and-so did this, that, and the other. I think that's really important. So when we look at it, we know what we're looking at a bigger piece, but we also know specifically what you did. So I think that's really good. And yeah, the descriptions off to the side, again, in ArtStation, those are really, really helpful.
There's another question that says, do you have any advice or recommendation for programmer's portfolio? I love that question, and I love that you're calling it a programmer's portfolio, because that's how I think of that. There are a lot of programmers who don't include any sort of examples of their code with any descriptions of the project, the problem they were trying to solve, the product that they built through their code, and what they engineered. So I think the same principles apply around take the work you're most proud of, the most challenging thing you solved, the best product that you built, the best automation, whatever that is. Show what your programming, your actual coding did, and if it's in the gaming world, that improve the lighting in a level by X percentage, or whatever that is, whatever the code is that helped build that game better, or even that element or component better. Show that. Be specific about what the project was. So hopefully that's helpful. And
yeah.
Use your code links. I mean,
designers too. There's a lot of designers that are having portfolios, which it's becoming more common, and I like to see it. Well, they'll put their maps together. If they're doing any scripting, they'll do the scripting and they show the nodes and how it all connects. And it's not something that I think a lot of people think of as a designer to have a portfolio, but it's becoming more and more common, and it's great to see. We really enjoy seeing those. Yeah, maybe we should let's move on, and we can come back to some of these other ones, I think.
Yeah.
If I knew how to run this, there we go. Ooh, I have to talk about social media.
Ooh, I like you.
To be honest, this makes me break out in hives. Most people are way more into social media than I am, and for those people in particular who are all over social media, it's especially important. Nicole touched on this. It's important to know what your brand is and to make sure that your messaging is consistent, and to know that employers are going to be looking. You might not think that they're going to check Facebook. You might not think that they're going to look at, things that you commented on Twitter, but that's going to come bubbling up. So you want to make sure that you know who you are, you have your personal brand, and you're representing yourself well to the rest of the world through social media. It's another place too, social media, that you can support your personal brand that's less connected to your employment, in a good way. You can take your hobbies, you can take the things that you can do, if you do any philanthropy, and you can showcase this. It's a way for recruiters and hiring teams and other employers to see the other side of you that might not be represented on your resume, right? We know your skills, we know what you do for a living, what rounds you out to make you a whole person. And social media can be a really, really good tool for that, and for supporting your personal brand and showing us holistically who you are and what you believe in. If part of your personal brand's being compassionate and empathetic on your social media channels, you can link to the groups that you support. If you're doing, like I said, any philanthropic work, you can show that. You can have pictures of yourself and links and all the organizations. If you're a rock climber, and that's a big part of who you are, social media is a great place to add that to your brand, and like Nicole said, things trigger us and we like to see things, and pictures of people hanging off mountains are cool. As with anything having to do with social media, there is a dark side. You know, we've touched on that. Whether your goal is to find a new job or if you're advancing your career, it's important to remember that employers are checking, they're looking, and they're finding stuff, and that's sometimes unfortunate. So just be careful what you put out there, especially if it goes against the image of the brand that you're trying to cultivate.
Yeah, I think to add upon that, I think to specifically talk about LinkedIn, because that's usually the most prevalent use, right? And as Katie mentioned, you know, be really careful about what you're doing. Make sure it's really representing who you are. But I would be careful in blending your personal social media presence with your professional social media presence when it specifically ties back to your LinkedIn profile. Just being extremely careful that everything, you know, ties back to your brand. I think Katie covered a lot of that.
That's a really good point. Like, I have a Facebook, and that's for my friends and family because I'm old, and I have my LinkedIn, and I don't post anything about my personal life on LinkedIn. And I generally don't post anything about my professional life on Facebook. So I do like to keep those two things very separate, but both of those are pieces that make me a whole person, if that makes sense. Maybe. Okay, I think we talked about that enough. The most important part of your personal brand is you. You know, all the things that we've been talking about today kind of build up to that and represent that, but it's also important to remember that you are a person. In a job search, that's super important because that is what we're really looking at, right? We're looking at you as a human being. All the hard work, let's face it, it started when you decided you wanted to do this. You wanted to go into this field, you studied or you went to school, you got a job, it led to building your resume, creating your career, all of that kind of stuff. It all built up to the moment in a job search where people like Nicole and I finally get to meet you and we get to talk to you, and that's super important. Pre-COVID, this would have been a stage like you get the through the job application, we call you, we talk to you, and then you would have gotten an on-site interview, which is a fantastic place for you to meet the team, for them to meet you, for you to shine. You get to talk about yourself, you get to show them what you do for a living, and everything is fantastic. Post-COVID, or we're just COVID at this point in time, it's a lot different. All of our meetings, all of our interviews, everything is happening online. We personally use Zoom, so I will say Zoom, but it happens on Skype, it happens on other platforms. And it's different, but it's still very, very important that you are able to connect with the hiring teams, your potential supervisors, your employers. So I put down some quick tips about interviewing over Zoom. Nicole, feel free to jump in if you have any of your own. And this is, in talking to my hiring teams, it was rocky the first couple of months that we were in quarantine, just because the cadence for doing these sorts of interviews was a little bit off. But we realized that if you treat it as much like a real in-person interview, the better off you are. Have your camera on.
Yes.
Be presented, like presentable, like take a shower that day. From here down, we don't care, but from here up, be professional, and be ready, be prepared. This goes across the board for having interviews, but I can't stress it enough. Read the job description before you get on the call with somebody. Know about the job that you're talking to them about. You might be interviewing in a lot of different places. It might get a little bit confusing. Take that 15-20 minutes before you jump on your call to know what you're doing. Know who you're talking to. In this day and age, it's very easy to look these people up on LinkedIn. If you're an artist or a designer, you can look them up on ArtStation or Moby Games. Look at their background, look at where they've worked, know who they are a little bit. That goes a long way. When people are like, oh, I know that you worked on so-and-so with this, that, and the other, and people are like, oh, okay, you did a little bit of your homework. That goes a long way with hiring managers. I will let you know that right now. And do some research on the company. If you sit down to talk to somebody and you're like, so what do you guys do? That is not a great question to ask. They want to know that you're prepared. They want to know that you're getting into, and that you've done your research and you've intentionally applied for a job at this company for a reason. And that goes with your brand. It goes back to everything that we've been saying about being intentional and making these choices and presenting yourself in the best possible light. Nicole, do you have anything to add to any of that?
I think to kind of jump back to the Zoom thing, I can't say this strongly enough. It is very important that you have having the picture on there, or not being able to see you, or sitting in a room where you have like maybe a giant pile of laundry behind you. We all understand that we're all working from home in this really weird time now, but you do want to put yourself in a space that, to the degree that you can control it, seems as professional as possible. Will the dog jump on your lap, the cat meow, or even your 2-year-old come over and start yelling? Maybe, yeah. But we all get that. We all understand that. But just, be really professional about that. And I think go in with a sense of confidence. The more you build your brand, the more you know who you are, the more you know exactly why you're talking to this company. Target your search. That's really important. If you really want to land someplace where your career development will give you what you are looking for, not just you providing a service to that company, be very, very confident in this brand that you've taken so much time, that we are confident you will do when you walk away from this meeting. It takes a lot of time and thought and process, and sometimes pain, to look inside and then figure out how you want to present yourself to the world. Go in with that level of confidence and know that even if this may not be the perfect fit for you, or you may not be a perfect fit for the company, that you've absolutely put the absolute best face you can on your brand, and using every single tool to do that, including the preparation. This is something, by the way, that we train recruiters and hiring teams to do on our side as well, because it's incumbent upon us to also be very prepared, and to know your portfolio, and to know your resume, and to know your code, and to know the work that you've done, and the challenges that you've solved, and the problems that you've tackled. That's our job to do that, and that's the recruiter's job to do that, to prepare their hiring teams as well. So you should expect that from the other side as well. Be prepared with questions that tie back to your values. If your values are a big part of your brand, make sure you're prepared to ask questions about that, and make sure that it's the right fit for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that I let my hiring teams know. This is a two-way street. We're interviewing somebody, but you're also interviewing us. You want to make sure that we're a good fit for you. And that goes back to knowing your values. Does this company, do we share your values? Do you actually want to work for a company, and figure it out? Are you going to be happy there? Are you going to be fulfilled? And sometimes the answer to that is no. Sometimes you'll go into an interview, you're super excited to meet the team, you really love the product, and you meet them and you're like, they don't share my values. I don't think I would be happy at this company. That happens. But again, starting the work ahead of time and really knowing what you want and who you are, building your brand going into it, will really help you make that decision and be comfortable with that decision. Let us move on. So if you're still skeptical, how could you be? We know what we're talking about. They were so good. We can skip this slide. Many writers, producers, artists, hiring managers, what was I about to say? How many writers? Sorry, I'm losing it, apparently. Making a first impression is crucial. We've talked about this. Showcasing what makes you unique is important, but what's going to make you stand out? What's going to set you apart from everyone else? I get almost every single cover letter I get starts with, I started playing games when I was 4 years old. It's true for a large part, but what really makes you unique? What really makes you stand out? Your personal brand, curating it, really, it can help people remember you if you put the work and the effort into it. I think I already said a lot of this stuff, so I'm skipping through my notes. And I think the flip side of that, which maybe we didn't talk about, Nicole, is in kind of haphazardly putting something together. An unintentional brand happens. If you're not intentionally building your persona and your personal brand, you are unintentionally building something. And that speaks just as loudly about you as if you put effort into it. So better to put the effort into it and have it say what you want, rather than a resume that you just typed up in 5 minutes to send out that's full of typos. It shows that you don't care, that you're sloppy, poor attention to detail. I actually got a resume once and it said good attention to detail, and attention was spelled incorrectly. I think I framed that one. It's my favorite. You know, anything that you put out into the world, especially in a job search, is going to be a reflection of who you are and how employers perceive how you will do your job. So again, I can't stress it enough. Just make sure it's intentional, and make sure it's buttoned up.
Yeah, and to kind of expand upon that, I would also argue that building an unintentional brand is really easy. It can happen very quickly. It can happen without like, whoops, what did I just do there? Like that, it's very easy to build an unintentional brand. I think anybody who is in the branding business understands that building a brand is it can be very difficult. It is very difficult. It's difficult to build a sustained brand that sustains itself over time. Almost when you think about it from a company perspective, we all know the brands that have lived for 40, 50 years without changing. That brand, everyone knows it. It's absolutely the brand that everyone worldwide recognizes, and the reasons why. That is really difficult to do, takes a huge amount of intention and planning. Think about yourself in the same way. Think about, how do I want to be? I mean, this is maybe a terrible example, but the second most recognized symbol on the planet is the golden arches from McDonald's. It's the second most recognized symbol on the planet, has been for decades. You want to think of yourself, how do I make myself the golden arches? How do I make myself stand out like the golden arches do? It's very hard to do. Work with people who understand how to craft messaging. Work with someone to proofread everything that you're doing. Make sure that you look at it, have separate sets of eyeballs on the way your portfolio is listed out, the way that your artwork is presented, how you communicate about that artwork. Is it consistent all the way through? It takes time, it takes intention, but as Katie said, it will pay off in spades. Recruiters will absolutely appreciate the thought, the clean ability to go through your brand and figure out who you are very quickly and understand if you're a good match for what that particular project is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well said. Okay. Stay in touch. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter. Again, I don't do social media a lot, so I don't tweet a lot, but I'm there, and you can find me. But yeah, LinkedIn is really for recruiters. If you want to find us, that is where we are. That is where we live. 90% of my day is spent there. I hope that the information that we presented has been helpful for you. If you have any follow-up questions, do find me. I'm happy to answer them. Eventually, sometimes we're busy people, but I will eventually respond to you. So please do reach out if you have specific questions. And it was a pleasure to be able to talk to y'all today.
Yeah, in addition, I'd love to just, finish by saying it's been a great pleasure. I wish we could have more interactively met
I know
your voices and seen your faces, but it's been such a pleasure meeting all of you through this very unique and very on-brand 2020 experience, as I said in the beginning. Please don't hesitate to reach out directly to either of us with additional questions, guidance, recommendations, feedback. That's fantastic for next year. Happy branding, everyone. Put the time in. We do have some additional questions in here. I have to actually jump off for another event that I'm attending, but hopefully, Katie, you can stay on and answer some of those questions.
I can do that.
Nuno and THU team, thank you so much. It's
Bye,
such a
Nicole.
pleasure meeting
Thank you
all
so
of
much.
you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Nicole.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, let's answer some questions. I got nothing but time. This is great. Let's go ahead and I'll scroll up and see what we caught, what we didn't. So talked about the description of the artworks. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea. I think you should absolutely do that. Nicole touched on the programmer's portfolio, which we're all super excited about. It's a really good way to represent yourself. Did that, talked about that one. Versatility and different styles of artworks are bad in a portfolio. No, not at all. Actually, my art director is doing a mentorship later this afternoon specifically about that, about how to be versatile as an artist and how important that is. And sometimes if we look at a portfolio that's really one note where everything is the same style, we can tell that artist has a particular style and they do it very, very well. But if what we're working on doesn't fall in line with that style, we're most likely to not reach out to that person because we don't know if they can do what we want. And we've got 17 other portfolios over here that we need to review, and those people probably can. So I think it's absolutely fantastic to have versatility in style, in theme, in color. I was talking to somebody the other day, and he had done a couple of 30-minute concept sketches, which I'd love to see those. Super jealous that people have that ability. But I told him, I said, bring those to the front of your portfolio. Those are great to see. And you can even do different treatments. So you did one, and now let's see what it looks like at night. Let's see what it looks like in the summertime. It shows art directors and art teams that you can iterate really quickly. If they have an idea and they want you to get it down for them, and you can sketch it out really quickly on a tablet, it's great to show. And Nicole talked about having your personal work, so having sketches. If you do painting, like even oil paint, having a little bit of that on your portfolio, or having a separate portfolio site for that kind of stuff is fantastic. We like to see that you're inspired and passionate about your craft outside of what you do. And a lot of people who work in games, if they're really lucky, they might be working on a franchise for years and years and years, but they don't get to deviate from that style. So having artwork and having things outside of that style is really important, and to showcase that too. Okay. Any advice for a branding graphic artist? That's a really long question. That's a very specific question. You know what, if you want to reach out to me, whoever wrote that one, I would love to have a conversation with you about that, because that's pretty detailed. And there is some definite advice I have for you there, but that's going to take longer than this platform that we have.
I think you've covered all of things. I think
I've covered quite a few things.
Yeah.
Again, if anybody has any questions outside of this, please reach out to me. I would love to talk to you about it.
Thank you so much, Katie.
You're welcome, Nuno. Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.